welcome. We're just going to let you all file in and get hopefully comfortable with a coffee or your lunch before we get started here. Okay, hi everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name's Alexandra Barlow. I'm the VP Programs with the Canadian Food Innovation Network. And I'm pleased today to take you through the details of our 2025-2026 Foodtech Next program call. If you are hoping to hear this session in another language, we do have live streaming available in French and other languages. So you can follow these outlined steps to go to in your Zoom meeting window to get the live streaming service. Donc, si tu voulais accéder à cette présentation en français, nous avons des captions en français que tu peux mettre sur l'écran pour la durée de la session. On a aussi sur notre site web, et on va le mettre dans le chat, un lien aux présentations en français. Notre guide pour ce programme, tous nos formulaires pour la demande peut être accédé en français. Si tu veux soumettre une demande en français, tu es parfaitement bien établi pour faire ça. Ça va être le même procès. On a des examineurs qui font leur travail en français aussi. Donc, si c'est cette langue-là que tu veux soumettre à nos programmes, c'est totalement correct. Puis on est bien établi pour faire ça pour vous. So here's the final steps for setting up Wordly. If you would like captions, either in French or English. We're going to go ahead now and get started. So if you're new to CFIN and new to who we are, welcome. We were established in 2021, and we're a national organization focused on engaging the food community on the front of innovation. So for us, we look at the food value chain across food and beverage processing, food distribution, food service and restaurants, as well as grocery retail, and even consumer-facing innovation. Our members care about using innovation to address barriers to growth, and we're here, yes, to bring funding and fund great projects, but we're also here to formulate connections. We're a huge sector, a huge country. We're broken down across different verticals within our part, CFIN's portion of the value chain. We're broken down across commodities, across regions, and we really serve to be a one-stop shop, a network where you can bridge some of those gaps and hopefully break down some silos and help make connections that grow your business. We are also ourselves distributed nationwide. I'm coming at you from Guelph, Ontario, but we have staff from coast to coast, and we also have member-facing staff, our regional innovation directors, who are based in each of our major regions to work one-on-one with members. So we're here to really sort of help break down some of the gaps that comes from being a very big country. Some of our members, so yes, we're an industry-driven association, and for those of you who are part of SMEs in the foods, SMEs or M&Es in the food sector, welcome. We also bring together academia and research centers, our incubators and accelerators, government and investors, to really bring together that ecosystem of people who not only are directly making food products for Canadians, but those who are also creating great food technology products for the Canadian food businesses, and all of those who sort of wrap around the sector and are working to grow it and help Canada be more competitive globally, but also give Canadians more domestic access to food. Our difference, as I mentioned, is really trying to bring together three critical things. One is the personal touch. We're a small but mighty team, and our 5 regional innovation directors are situated across the country and can provide you with local support as well as connection into national solutions. Yodel is our digital platform. Yodel allows you to 24/7 go and access information and also your peers in the sector. If you have questions like what's the best nutrition labeling software, who's got spray drying capacity, what is everyone, where are you sourcing your organic shredded coconut? I can't access my US supplier, perhaps because of tariff challenges, things like that. Yodel's a great space, a LinkedIn type environment where you can connect directly to food industry peers. And then, of course, we offer funding where, we're looking to drive the development of Canadian food innovation to foster collaboration. So today we're here to talk about Foodtech Next. It's one of our premier and sort of most popular programs. I'm going to go through lots of slides on this program and hopefully answer all your burning questions. If you have questions as I tackle certain topics, feel free to put them in the question and answer function of Zoom for this call. We will answer them there. It is very difficult for me at the end of this session to go through the chat and find your questions between introductions and the links that we're sharing. So please use the Q&A function. My colleague Jaleh will answer some of those questions as we go, and then also I will answer them at the end of the session. If you have very specific questions about your specific project, it's a bit hard to have a conversation in this particular setup. So we really recommend that you contact us if you want to go through some specific instances of a project. And we'll talk to you further through the presentation about how you can reach us and things like that. So Foodtech Next. This is the third round or a cycle of Foodtech Next. It's for the 2025-2026 fiscal year, which for us is starting on April 1st. We've already opened the application. The forms opened yesterday. Foodtech Next is for companies who have clearly established their product market fit, who know what's needed to validate and sell their technology, and they need to now get their first demonstrations in the food sector. So it's a tough sector to sell into. We know that. Demonstrating a novel piece of software or ingredient or piece of hardware, for example, is expensive. And of course, your first customer generally doesn't want to pay for that experience or not pay full price. So we're here to help bridge that. We provide 50% support up to $250,000 per project, and that is for a maximum 18-month demonstration project. We cannot go any longer than that. And as I mentioned when I was talking a little bit about CFIN, we look at what we call the post-farm gate supply chain. So for us, the primary benefactors of your project must be a food and beverage manufacturer, a food distributor, restaurants, food service organizations, grocery retail, or even consumers. But if the primary benefactor of your solution is a farm or a farmer or someone who grows crops or raises livestock, an agricultural producer, that is not eligible for our funding. There are some sort of similar organizations to CFIN, one in particular called CANE, who we recommend. They look specifically at, innovation in farming. We are looking at the later end of the supply chain. So if you have a project that is focusing primarily on farmers, it will likely not be eligible for our funding. If you if the technology is something that maybe takes data from the farm but uses that data and drives change and impact through processing through to retail, that could be eligible. But I would recommend when you write your application that you talk to me about those impacts, not the impacts to the farmer. If you detail a project that focuses largely on a farm, it may be deemed ineligible and not proceed to reviews. We have 3 innovation priorities that we focus on within our organization. And of course, they're pretty big topics, each of them. First, of course, we're looking at helping the sector create and adopt smart processes. How can we use robotics, digitization, AI to drive competitiveness and productivity? Big topic in Canada these days, but also smart products. We've got a growing boomer and silver economy. How do we drive health, nutrition, and wellness benefits through novel ingredients? How can we adopt emerging science or even bioeconomy practices to develop new proteins or ingredients? And how can we use new processing technologies to reduce energy usage or to maybe improve food quality, say through dehydration, etc. Food ecosystem sustainability. So obviously there's been lots of articles and a lot of details lately about food waste reduction, about value recovery. Maybe even you're looking at circularity and upcycling from a major product waste stream. We look at green and smart packaging for the food sector. And of course, how can we be more efficient with our inputs, specifically energy, water, and fuel? And of course, agile and safe supply chains. COVID exposed weaknesses of many of our national supply chains as well as international supply chains. So tools that we can use to enhance supply chain and logistic outcomes, tools that we can give to consumers and to give them more insights on even the story behind their food. Sorry about that, my slide went ahead on me. And of course, things that can improve food safety as well as food security. How can we get more healthy food into the hands of Canadians? And things like IoT, digital applications, blockchain, and traceability. These are all topics that fall under those. Broadly, these are, some big buckets that we see most of our applications fall into, and we'll ask you in the application how you fit into these priorities and how your project aligns with them. For us, it's important to recognize that we are looking for intellectual property outcomes, that we are looking for novel solutions. So we're generally going to be funding a new food ingredient, a new food process, a new piece of software or hardware. There has to be an element of novelty, and that novelty should not be a new food product in, like, for example, in an existing category. So if you're on the call today and you're creating the next best dairy-free ice cream or the next protein bar or really high quality tofu, those are fantastic products. They're not quite within our wheelhouse of what we fund. So we tend to be focused, as I mentioned, on IP, not necessarily a new product formulation. So if you are formulating a new food product, we can point you to some other programs, hopefully, that can help support you, but generally they will not be eligible under our programs. And if you think you're on the edge of that or in a gray area, let's have a chat before you dedicate the time and energy to a Foodtech Next application. So how much funding do we have available? So as I mentioned, we provide up to $250,000. The total eligible project cost should be between $100,000 and $500,000. Funding will be provided on a reimbursement basis, so we don't provide advances. If your application is successful, we'll require a non-refundable project management fee of 5% of your total project costs. That's to manage the expenses of administering your project and providing our staffing around our programs team. We fund 5 to 8 Foodtech Next projects per intake. So we receive anywhere up, generally between 40 and 50 submissions per intake, and we're going to approve up to about 8. So it's very competitive. And so really recommend that you do some work on the front end to assess your eligibility, and happy to have a conversation with you if you're unsure about that. So for what's an eligible project under Foodtech Next? First of all, you have to be a CFIN member. If you're on this call and you're not a CFIN member yet, I recommend you go to our website and you join as a member. It takes about 5 minutes. You get access to all of our services and Yodel on top of being able to apply to our programs. Membership is free. Once you have become a member, it takes about 24 hours for us to get you set up on our application portal, at which point you can go and access the application. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in this video. So to be eligible, you must be in a Canadian incorporated business with less than 1 million in annual sales in your most recently completed fiscal year. If you are pre-revenue, that is all right. If you've just gotten incorporated, generally that is a challenge for us. We'd like to see at least 1 year of incorporation under your belt before applying to our programs. You should be seeking to demonstrate an innovation that has a technology readiness level of 4 to 7. And I'm going to talk more about that on a later slide, with an ideal project ending up at a system prototype demonstration in an operational environment. That's TRL 7. And it could end further along than that. But what we really want to do is put your innovation on a plant floor, in a restaurant, in an actual food business, and give you the results data and the ROI for that help you go and gain your next customers. So if you're not getting into a demonstration phase, you are going to want to look at our other programs like our Innovation Booster to see if that program is a fit. New this year, all of our funding applicants must demonstrate that you have an intellectual property strategy in place or in development. I'm going to talk about that too. If you've not yet started that work, we are going to ask you to make it part of your project. We're happy to refer you to partners in your region or in your province who can help you with that. There's a lot of different funding programs available nationally and across the different provinces to help you with that work. But it is important. If you are thinking, as I bring this up, I don't know that I'll be creating any intellectual property, you may want to consider that a bit of a red flag as you consider our programs, because we are looking for you to be creating some kind of intellectual property. And as I said, I've got a whole slide on that. Foodtech Next is all about late stage development and demonstration projects. So as I mentioned earlier, we're looking for a TRL of 4 to 7 for your activities. And if you're looking to understand what 4 to 7 is, we're looking that you are either going to be building a small scale prototype in a laboratory environment, right through to demonstrating an operational environment. Our ideal projects, top scoring projects, will get to a 7. So we want to see that either samples of your ingredient or pilot units of your equipment or of your software are being tested by real-world food customers. That is critical to the Foodtech Next program. What will we pay for? A fair few things. And in Foodtech Next, we will consider both the expenses incurred by you, your company as the tech innovator, but also as the expenses of your food partner. So for example, if you need to install a unit in a restaurant, and to do that, they need to do $4,000 worth of electrical unit work to get it installed, we will cover that $4,000 of electrical work at your partner's location. We will cover direct labor, which is the salaries of someone who's on payroll at your business, who is a direct technical contributor to the project. We will not pay any wages paid to your majority shareholders. So if you're an early stage business and the folks getting paid are all shareholders, I can't cover that. They must be, employees without a majority shareholder stake in the project. We require timesheets to be completed, and we're not paying 100% of their wages. We're just paying their time on the project. If that happens to be a full-time effort, fine. But we are looking for that to be supplemented with evidence regarding what time they spent on what activities. Subcontractors and consultants, so that could be someone like Bureau Veritas doing testing for you. It could be McMaster University undertaking some development work for you. It could be a contract partner, like, for example, the Saskatchewan Development Center. So it could be a number of organizations. They should be carrying out technical work on the project. The invoices that you provide to us once the application is approved has to show what their scope of work is. Materials. So if you're building, let's say a composter unit or a robotic arm, or you need to purchase some testing equipment or some materials for testing. Maybe you even need to buy some food products. If you can identify those materials as being associated with the project, we will pay for them. Really high volume, low cost items like rubber gloves, hairnets, buckets, pails, hand drills, other bits of equipment like filament for a 3D printer. We have an indirect cost policy that covers those items and an overhead allotment, and I'll cover that on the next slide. We will cover equipment. So if you need to purchase certain pieces of equipment to undertake the project activities, we will pay for it. Telling me that you need to purchase this piece of equipment in order to scale your production or increase your output is not likely going to be a winning strategy. It has to be shown directly attributed to the actual execution of the project. Other direct costs, shipping expenses, software that's directly related to the project, and travel. And not mentioned here, but something we will consider are small leaseholds. So as I mentioned, electrical work to accommodate a pilot unit. And all of these costs, we will consider them both at the innovator's business, just as much as we'll consider them at the partner's business. So our indirect cost coverage. We automatically provide a 55% overhead, which we call an indirect cost rate, to any labor in your budget, to a maximum of 15% of your total cost. So if you put in $50,000 worth of labor, we will attach an indirect overhead to cover the sort of unseen or difficult to account for expenses that are often buried in your projects or part of your projects. For example, general administrative labor. So project management, your finance team as they prepare claims. Maybe you've got vacation and benefits that you pay these employees. Sales team members, your executive assistant while they schedule appointments with your project partners and you. These are the sort of things covered by the indirect cost policy. High volume materials, rubber gloves, pipettes, hairnets, buckets, forklifts, ladders, hand tools, drills, kind of stuff you typically are buying off of Amazon or at Canadian Tire or Home Depot. They tend to be items that we will not consider, in the sense that we won't pay for them directly, but we give you this extra percentage to your project to cover them. Your facility lease, your rental, your HVAC, your lighting, and your hydro. Those are all things that we will not pay for directly. Laptops, general software, office furniture, transportation, daily commutes, travel insurance. These are all under our indirect. If you put them in your budget, we will deem them ineligible. Our program guide has a full overview of the indirect costs in our appendix, and I recommend that you review that, and that will help you build out your budget. You do not have to claim any of these expenses listed here. You don't have to provide me evidence of incurring these expenses. As I mentioned, we will just tack it onto your budget and provide you funding for it. Um, so don't put it in your budget. We're going to give you an allotment for it because we know it exists. It's obvious, you know, if you're got an engineer working on a project that you might need a computer for them. Things we won't pay for. Any kind of sales and marketing activity. This is an R&D funding program. I will not pay for consultants to develop a commercialization plan. I won't pay for salaries or staff on sales teams. I won't pay for travel or trade shows or conferences, any sales materials, websites, etc. We also cannot pay for any security or safety certifications. So things like TSSA certifications, food safety consultants, it's not eligible under our program. Alcohol tips, unreasonable travel expenses, the cost of a consultant to pay for your application or who's going to prepare your application or your claims, or anything that's just not outlined in your original budget that doesn't have our prior consideration or approval. So if your project gets approved and it starts to deviate from the original sort of outlined activities, you need to come to us. We need to do an amendment if that's appropriate. And we need to make sure that your contract and the budget that's in it reflects what's actually happening. We will always go back to what you originally submitted to evaluate if what you're claiming to us is eligible. So you want to make sure, you know, this budgeting effort happens at the full application stage in Foodtech Next, and you want to take some time to really make sure you consider what the expenses are that you're going to be submitting. Many of you are, you know, looking across at other programs and organizations who might also be providing funding, groups like MyTax or IRAP. And come to us asking, can I stack? Stacking is, of course, the art of layering different programs together. Our rule is that stacking cannot exceed 75% of total project costs. If you have other funding already secured or close to being secured when you apply, please outline it to us in your budget. If you're doing something like shred tax credits, that is not stacking. I do not need to know about that in the application. If you're unsure, you're welcome to indicate it. We do give you a table in the application to mark those types of expenses in. So intellectual property, I said we were going to talk about it some more, and here it is. It is the expectation of CFIN with research and development projects that you will be creating new intellectual property because of your innovation project and that you will be protecting it, whether that is a trade secret, an industrial design, or, you know, the patent. If you're thinking, I'm not going to create any new novel intellectual property as a result of this project, or, you know, as a result of the commercialization of this asset that I've been working on that I'd like CFIN to help me with, that may be a bit of a red flag for you, as I mentioned earlier, that your project could not be super appropriate for our program. To spend $500,000, for example, on a demonstration project and come out of it with no new known pieces of technology or intellectual property seems unlikely to me and to us at CFIN. We want to support industry-led projects that generate IP that will benefit the food ecosystem. Your proposal is your opportunity to articulate what your IP strategy is for your project. If you've not started that yet, that's okay. There's a lot of opportunities within Canada, as I mentioned earlier, to tap into provincial and national resources to get help with IP, whether that's just advice or whether they give you funding as well. We will also fund intellectual property expenses, and we will be asking you in the application to outline what your intellectual property strategy is. Even if you are a software developer and everything you're creating is a trade secret, you need to have processes and practices of how you treat intellectual property. And we want to know that you're putting that in place from the beginning. So As I said, if you've not begun that work yet, we will be requiring you to begin it as part of participating in this program. And we do have some supports that we can connect you with at a national and regional level to help you begin that process, whether it's publicly funded programs or a private. If you want some referrals to a lawyer, we can certainly provide you that. But it is a must-have, and it carries some significant points in the application process. So it's something that we think is very important. And if you're curious about what the sort of difference maker IP strategies can be in your growth as a business, I'm happy to share some metrics around that in another conversation. The application process. Foodtech Next is a highly competitive two-phase application. We will accept applications online in our portal until the advertised date of closure for the intake for the first phrase. If you do not participate in the expression of interest, there's no participation for you further down the line. You must get in at this first step in order to make it to the end. We are only running one application of this program this fiscal year. So this is your opportunity. You don't want to miss it. The application portal that we use allows you to submit supplemental documents, letters of support, quotes, cost proposals, any documentation you feel might add context to your submission, we welcome. We do require 2 years of financial statements. I know as many of you are, we specify we're looking for early stage, early revenue companies. If you have not started doing financial statements at the audited review engagement or notice to reader stage, a term sheet, a bank statement, or other documentation demonstrating your financial position, or a letter showing that you have the balance of your request, this is the bare minimum. We prefer to receive your financial statements, but we will look at other documentation in the interest of wanting to be supportive. We know that many of you are new entrants, and this may not yet be part of your business practice. You must provide us proof of financial capability, otherwise you may not proceed through the reviews. And by the way, providing proof of financial capability doesn't mean that you're going to be approved. It means that we will consider you. So as I mentioned earlier, we're a reimbursement program. You've got to have enough working capital to float the activities on this project while we review and then pay out your claims. We don't do a large advance. So as I mentioned, it's a two-phase application process. First, the expression of interest. It's a short submission. We're trying to make it simple for you. We've given you, I believe, about 6 weeks to complete it. You will provide a project overview with a title, description, start and end date, pretty basic bits of an application. You'll give us a profile of your business, including financial information, who your shareholders are, things like that. We'll ask you to outline and identify any major service providers or project partners. If you know who they are at this stage, you'll have the chance to edit that at the full application as well. And then we ask you 3 questions. What's the product market fit for your solution for customers in the food sector, specifically CFIN's members? I can't drive that home enough. If you just talk about farmers here, you're not going to make it very far with us. Describe your pilot readiness. How ready are you to actually put this unit in a food business? What do you need to do before? It's okay if there's still some legwork to be done, but how ready are you? And how does this pilot fit into your plans for growth of your business? And then who is your target pilot partner? You might not have them exactly finessed as of yet. Maybe you're talking to a couple and you're really trying to nail down one of them, and you're going to do that through the application process. That's fine. We want to know who they are, how big they are, any kind of qualifying details. Don't just say, I'm targeting grocery retailers in Canada, or I'm targeting any food and beverage processor. There's 7,800 food and beverage processing facilities across Canada. They're all widely different in their capabilities, budgets, and infrastructure. Let's be more specific. To get full points here, we want to know, we want to see some clear targets. Then we are going to ask you to attach a pitch deck to your submission. The pitch deck is scored. The pitch deck should be no more than 10 slides, and it should address the following 6 areas. And if you review the program guide for each of these 6 areas, we tell you exactly what we want to see. There's about 2 to 3 bullet points for each of these 6 areas. So it should help you very clearly guide your pitch deck to address the following 6 areas. It doesn't need to be text heavy. Just give us, if you've got some good graphs, go ahead. And if it is more text heavy, totally fine, but you want to make sure that you address these 6 areas and the elements that we request within them in order to get the full points. And the scoring. And I apologize for how to lay this out. It's very difficult to show you a scoring table this big in font size all of us can read. Use this while preparing your answers. This is what the reviewers for each section of the application, they are going to be looking at these specific components and be scoring you accordingly. Our reviewers are screened for conflict of interest. They're also bound by confidentiality agreements. These applications don't have to tell us the nitty-gritty of your secret and how you've gotten to develop your technology as good as you have, but it does need to give us the business case and the industry rationale and the market opportunity for what it is you're trying to do. We will be taking the top scoring submissions from this phase and inviting them to a full application. Your full application is where we ask you, to complete a budget and a work plan. We invite more attachments to support the proposal, and we actually also ask you for a 5-minute video pitch. It can be yourself delivering a presentation, much like I am doing today. We just want a quick 5 minutes. It's a great opportunity for you to take the reviewer, and in particular our Innovation Advisory Council, who is part of the decision-making team, out of the paper and give them a sense of your business and, in a different format. It's not a scored component. It's just an opportunity for them to get that initial view before they dive into your questions, and they find it highly valuable. And that's why we've kept it as a component of the application. And there will be 6 areas of response in the full application. As I said previously, with this section as well, in the program guide, each of these questions has specific bullets that we want you to answer with the application. So you're going to answer these. You can see some of the elements that we talked about already showing up here in some of our questions. And as I said, the video pitch, we present this to our CFIN Advisory Council, and the reviewers also get to watch it, and it's an opportunity for them to hear from you about your organization, about your project. And there's guidance in the application guide about, what the pitch should contain. And what are we scoring at the full application stage? We want to see, who your partners are. So at the full application stage, you are, within about 60 days of an approval if you are to be approved. So you need to have your partners defined and ready to go. We want to know who they are, what the stage of readiness is. We suggest that if they are good to go, that there's a letter of support that accompanies the submission. We give that 15 points. Your team, how scalable your solution is, and what the product market fit and how validated that product market fit is, those are each worth 20 points. These are responses where you really want to ensure that you're taking the time to address the components of the scoring to get the full points. As I mentioned, intellectual property, you've outlined that you've got, you understand that what IP and what kind of IP you're going to be created. We're open to all kinds. That you know how to handle intellectual property, and you've thought about how you're going to handle IP among your partners. And you've got a plan for action around managing IP that comes out of this project. What are the next steps for your company? If you're successful, where does this go from here? Is it more investment raises? Is it more pilots? Is it you're going to be hiring? Are you going to move into your first sales or maybe your second generation unit with this particular customer? And lastly, a work plan and a budget. Your budget has to be detailed. If there are some really big cost items, we'd love to see them supported by quote. We want to see that your internal labor resources are clearly technical contributors. We want to see a scope of work for your vendors. So for example, Bureau Veritas testing, not just, Joe Blow Consulting, and that's it. I don't know what they do. So we need to be able to assess the eligibility of your budget, and we do give that points. And we want to see a detailed work plan. The work plan goes into your contract. You do not just want it to say one thing. You want to have some clear breakdown with at least 5 activities. This is an 18-month project and a reasonable approach that aligns with your application. And so this is holistically what we're going to look at the full application stage. And then from here, from the top scorers, we'll determine the winners for this particular call of Foodtech Next. So I'm going to run a little bit of a demo on how to use our system, and then we're going to go to questions. And I hope that this will provide you with some good insights on our system and how it works. So our CFIN dash. Just give me 1 second. I want to make sure I get to the right spot. All right, here I am at our website for application portal. Si tu veux accéder le système en français, if you want to access it in French, you can choose a language up here. We offer it in English and French. And once you choose that, it will change the entire language of the entire system to French or English. And so you can access the application in a language of your choice. Once you've become a member of CFIN, we'll set you up on this system. The first time you come here, just follow the step for forgot password to set your password up and access this system for the first time. Once you've logged in for the first time, this is what the system will look like. You'll see your organization profile and your profile. Go to these and complete them. Put in your contact information, put the address for your business, put a very brief high-level business profile. This will auto-feed into the application and make it a little bit easier. So we recommend you start there. And then you want to go to funding opportunities. You'll click funding opportunities and you'll see 3 currently open programs. And by clicking apply now, you'll start one. Once you've started an application, I'm just going to quickly go back. So once you've gone and you've begun this process and you save it, you leave because you got to go pick up the kids and come back later to work on your application. You will find it under here under in progress. Do not go back and start another one. You won't find anything you already started. So once they're in here, you've begun them and saved them, they're in progress. Once they're submitted, they'll show up here. And when there's a response to them, they'll show there. So I'm going to go to in progress, to show you the process. Maybe I'll do one just to begin. So I'm going to apply to Foodtech Next, the program we're discussing today. First thing we're going to ask you are 3 qualifying questions. First is, has it been at least a year of incorporation or since your incorporation? So I'm going to say yes. Does this have to do with farmers? I'm going to say yes, it impacts the post-farm gate community, and yes, it demonstrates new processes. If you say no to any of these, you will not proceed to the application. It will tell you you're ineligible. I think we've covered why throughout the presentation up to this point. You'll click Submit Eligibility, and it will say, great, you're confirmed, proceed here. And now you are into the expression of interest. So if you want, there's some guide instructions here. You can open the guide in a new tab and read that or download it. I would recommend starting there. And then your project title, description, start, end date, the contact for your project. The applicant information, as I mentioned, we're going to ask for some details here. A lot of the information on this page is going to be fed from your organization profile. If you've got two facility sites, you've maybe got a lab and a production facility. If the project's going to happen at another site, if you say yes, then it will give you the opportunity to enter the address for the project site, your business details, the name of your shareholders, some demographic information, and then your fiscal year information. This should generally be validated by your financial statements that you're providing. Your service providers and partners, as I mentioned, this can be edited later in the application as well. So if you want to put an early version here, you're welcome to. Here are the EOI questions. We ask you just at a high level, what's your total budget, your firm profile, elevator pitch, and our 3 application questions. They each allow 500 words for the questions. I recommend you use them. As I mentioned, it is a competitive application. The priorities and benefits, you'll just select one at this stage and then provide the response. You'll just select one, and then at the full application stage, more questions will show up here. This is where you can attach your supporting documentation, your pitch deck, and your financial statements. And then you'll agree to the terms of condition. As you're working through this, you will want to save draft often. So this is what the EOI looks like. At the full application, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I'm going to go to in progress and show you my current. So these is, once I've started applications, I can see them all here, our different applications that we've been working on here. I've got one under, oh, I don't have it. Just give me 1 second here. Just want to show you what the full application looks like. And apologies, just give me 1 second, as it really does make a difference sometimes to see these things underway. And last step before we move here to showing you so I've got Foodtech Next at full application draft, so I'm at the full proposal. And what changes here is all of your responses from the EOI stage will be locked. You'll be able to see them, but you can't change them. You'll have a new tab for the applications questions where you can put your video pitch. You'll answer the questions. As I mentioned, each one has some details that they encourage you to consider in your response. You'll answer some questions around the benefits and the next steps for your firm if this is successful. We also provide this table to ensure you quantify your response. That's often an area in which companies don't quite do that well. And of course, these are forecasts, but we're curious, how will this project impact your business? These are the areas that we ask you about. If you don't have an impact in that particular area, not to worry, just leave it blank. We ask you for 3 years post-project what the impacts could be. We also ask you in the subsequent 3 columns, if you didn't do this project, what would happen in your business? Maybe it's a complete non-starter. Maybe there would be no impacts. We're really curious about that. We want to see how this is a difference maker for your organization. And so we provide this table to do that. For your budget, you'll open it by clicking the open window. You will go in and update your budget, so you can add costs, say engineering director, and maybe, I don't know, 120 hours. And you can put in, I don't know, we'll put 55,000, and then you have to select that they're a Canadian supplier. And we'll do the same thing for each row. So our sub, again, let's use my always example of Bureau Veritas for testing. And we'll put 55,000 as well. And yes, so as you do that, if you click save, What will happen is the budget at the bottom will automatically calculate, as I mentioned, the indirect costs available to you. So it's calculating about $30,000 in indirect costs. Then it calculates your total costs. It will remove the indirect costs that exceed 15% of your total budget, because as I mentioned, we cap it at that. So then you'll come up with your total budget and your request from CFIN. If you put in like, a huge budget into the line items, just remember that the indirect costs come into play and could push your budget higher than you intend for it to be. And it will also calculate the 5% project management fee. And once you save that, save it again, we'll close this. And then you can complete the forecast and the sources of funds table. If you've completed these two tables and then you realize, oh, I forgot a line item in my budget, you've got to go and clear. You got to go and edit the budget, save it, save the whole draft again, and then go into these other subsequent tables and make sure that you clear them so that they refresh the information from the first table. And once you put in that information, the budget will show up here in a view for you. Your application files, and then of course, terms and conditions, you'll save draft, and then you'll submit. If you try and submit and something's missing, it won't let you. Same thing at the EOI stage. And when you submit, you'll receive an email confirmation with a PDF attached as well of the submission. Our programs team is here to help you. That's myself and my colleague Jaleh. We're a team of 2. We are also supplemented by our 5 regional innovation directors. I do recommend as a starting point to read the program guide and see if the answer is there. It's pretty thorough. Our regional innovation directors can help you connect to resources and collaborators. Our programs team is happy to explain different details about the program. There is only 2 of us on our programs team. I'm going to move to questions here in a second. If you have questions about a specific project and you want to ask us, feel free to email us. But email us and give us some details so that we can review it and respond to you. Do not just email and say, I have a question. There's only 2 of us. So you really got to give us some meat to respond to so that we can point you in the right direction. If possible, and if we have capacity, we're happy to have a discussion with you via web chat, for example. But set us up for success here. Let us help you, but give us the information in your communication so that we can direct you as best as possible. And read the program guide first. We put a lot of effort into those documents just for you. So I'm going to answer some questions. If you have more of them, put them in the chat and I'm here to answer those. Someone says, can you define post-farm gate? Hopefully I've done that throughout the call. I see this was from early in the session, but post-farm gate for us is food and beverage processors, food distributors, food service and restaurants, and grocery retail. And we also look at some consumer-facing tools and applications. So that's what we look at. Things that are on the edge, grain dryers, abattoirs, they're sort of in the early stage. If something is happening on the farm, it is not really generally eligible for our programs. Second question, if the founder is a shareholder but does not own 50% of shareholders, i.e. not major shareholder, can his or her labor be claimed? We've set the threshold at 30% and have requested you to outline anybody who owns that. So that is our threshold that we work with. If you have some specific situations, you're welcome to ask us about it. But generally, we are here to fund staff and contractors, not shareholders in the business. How do you differentiate research to develop novel processes versus IP registration as a result? Are they weighted differently in the application? No, we've funded projects that create trade secrets. We have funded projects that create industrial processes. We've funded projects that identify provisional patents or future patent applications. We just want to know that, listen, we all have IP in our business. Even a food manufacturer making a granola bar has IP. It's the recipe for that granola bar. Many Canadian businesses are not adequately protecting or understanding what their intellectual property is in their business. And so we don't weight the type of IP. We want to know that you have a strategy. So, for example, in software, it's often very heavily trade secrets. That's great. How do you protect those? Does your team sign NDAs? What do you do if your staff leaves? Is that information locked in your system, or can anyone open it? Those are the kind of things that an IP strategy should help you formulate. What are the controls around this intellectual property? Because it's an asset that has value and we want to be protecting it in your business. So that's the sort of thing we want to see. If you're going for a patent, great. We love that. But we also validate and understand that there's other types of intellectual property. We want to know that you have a practice in your business around managing it and identifying it. Someone's asking si le video sur la présentation, or if the video presentation could be completed in French. Non, je m'excuse, on fait pas le présentation en français. J'ai environ une quinzaine de minutes de dialogue et vocabulaire en français. Donc, pour une présentation de cette nature, c'est pas vraiment une bonne chose. Mais ma collègue Julie Daigle peut vous communiquer en français et vous avez aussi le guide du programme en français. So hopefully that answers your question. We're not doing the video in French. It would be a torturous experience for everyone for me to do 45 minutes to an hour in French. Someone asks about project partners. Someone asks if project partners refer specifically to those involved in the development of the innovation, or if it includes people who might participate in the pilot demonstration. It could be both. It could be both. So the project partner could be if you have a company who has complementary technology that you're working with. Yes, you are welcome to indicate them as a partner. If you're working with someone who's going to be piloting your technology, also eligible to be included. So it could be either. I understand the question now about the pitch deck and the video. Donc, oui, si tu veux faire ton vidéo ou ton pitch deck en français, tu peux soumettre ces documents en français. On va engager des examineurs pour votre soumission qui vont faire leur travail en français et ils sont bilingues. Et donc, ils vont être capables de recevoir vos documents en français. And someone's asking, I'm not sure if I missed this, how many projects will be funded in this intake? We have funding for anywhere from 5 to 8 projects. It really depends how much money everyone asks for. So every time we see a submission, every intake differs. We've had, I think, 9 in the last one and 5 in the first one of previous intakes for this program. Someone asks, once I press submit, I can't edit the application anymore. Donc, si tu cliques sur soumettre, vous ne pouvez plus corriger votre soumettre. Once you press submit, the application's with us. However, we do conduct a review of your application where once it's submitted, we will check it and make sure it has enough details to proceed to examination, or we will deem it ineligible. We will ask if there is something missing that we feel you can correct. We will send you the application back for revisions. We will give you 48 hours to make those revisions, and that's it. And if you do not make the revisions, then the application does not proceed. But if you submit by accident and you want us to release the application back to you, just contact Innovation and we can do so. But if it's past the deadline, what you submitted is what you submitted. So, for example, if you went in today and you're playing around and you accidentally submitted, we can release that back to you. But as of April 7th, we won't be releasing it back to you. The last question I see is, I don't think I'm ready now. Will this program be available next year? At this time, I do not have plans to bring this program back next year, but stay tuned. You never know. We are always launching new programs. I do recommend that you keep an eye on our website. If you feel after this presentation that our Foodtech Next program is not quite where you're at, I encourage you to check out our Innovation Booster program, which is another fund that we have open and available. And we will be launching some other programs throughout the rest of this year. They're just still in formulation and sort of final development. So we will be launching new things, and always recommend to stay tuned to what we're up to. I think that's all the questions. We're at 12:59. I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to see your innovations and hear more about your business. And we encourage you to email us at innovation@cfin-rcia.ca. Whether you want to ask us in French or in English about your sort of burning Foodtech Next questions, we're happy to work with you, and our regional innovation directors are also available across Canada to hopefully help you forge connections or understand this program a little bit better. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.